A couple of months ago, you might remember that Justin Trudeau did a big cabinet shuffle in hopes that he could reset his government. I warned Liberal MPs at the time that Justin Trudeau will use you for his own personal agenda and then lose you as soon as things get tough for him. Well, we're only 1 week back into Parliament, and it's happened again. By now, you, and horribly the entire world, now knows that the Prime Minister brought a Waffen-SS Nazi into the House of Commons. The Nazi was introduced and praised and applauded. After that, over the weekend, reports started to come out about his presence in the gallery. And you know what the Prime Minister did? He hid for 5 days before he showed up in the House of Commons. In the meantime, they first said they had vetted all visitors, then they said they hadn't, they flip-flopped a bunch of times like usual, and then ultimately threw the Speaker under the bus.
Was invited, as you yourself, Mr. Speaker, have confirmed by you.
The Prime Minister's office would have been involved in every single aspect of President Zelensky's visit because he's a foreign leader at war with a superpower. I saw firsthand how seriously it was taken. All of the security, all of the law enforcement agencies involved. You know, I was also in Parliament back when President Obama visited. So when I was leaving after President Zelensky's address, what struck me was the seriousness, the scope and the scale of military, law enforcement, security presence, the motorcade. And actually, it was much more extensive when President Zelensky was here than when President Obama spoke to Parliament. And of course, it makes sense that there would be so much security and law enforcement because Putin has tried to kill President Zelensky multiple times.
The Speaker was solely responsible for the invitation and recognition of this man and has wholly accepted that responsibility and stepped down.
So let's think about this. The Prime Minister is trying to say that no vetting was done, so nobody knew, and this is all the Speaker's fault. Except that flies in the face of the intensity and scope and scale of the security and law enforcement around President Zelensky for his address to Parliament and his entire visit to Canada. He's really trying to suggest that a major diplomatic visit by a foreign leader at war was handled by the Speaker and a couple of assistants in his office. That's just not believable. I don't believe it for a second, and neither should you. Like, if they actually didn't do any vetting, that's a major problem in itself, but the Prime Minister hasn't answered any questions about that either. So check out this next clip and see what you think.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support.
It looks to me like Speaker Rhoda really was reading those notes for the very first time. But you see that pause?
Independence against the Russians.
It seems like he actually realized in the moment that the guy was actually a Nazi. And that says to me that this wasn't his plan at all. And of course he wasn't solely responsible, because there would be multiple government departments and agencies involved, like the Privy Council Office, which supports the Prime Minister and all cabinet ministers, Global Affairs, Public Safety, the RCMP, and a whole network of law enforcement and security agencies. And by the way, all those professionals work really hard and they take their jobs really seriously. So the buck absolutely stops at the Prime Minister because all of those agencies and departments report to him. So after days of hiding, the Prime Minister finally shows up in the House of Commons to answer some questions.
This Prime Minister allowed for a monumental, unprecedented, and global shame to unfold in this chamber. Will he take personal responsibility for this shame and personally apologize on behalf of himself?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all of us in this House, I would like to present unreserved apologies for what took place on Friday.
As usual, he points fingers at others, passes the blame, and says that we all have to reflect on his own shortcomings and his personal responsibility in this situation. But this is, of course, what he always does when he's caught up in a scandal of his own making. Like, remember when he was accused of groping a local reporter and he said, oh, she must have experienced it differently, and also it was a moment for all of the rest of us to think about the relations between men and women?
I did not know
to what she was referring. I do not feel that there was any inappropriate action of any type. If I apologized, it was because I saw that she had been made uncomfortable. This transformation of our society needs to involve every single one of us being reflective about our actions, about how they can be experienced by others.
Or when he was called out for wearing black and brown face so many times he couldn't even remember. And he said it was a moment for all of the rest of the country to reflect on. Well, actually, the Prime Minister needs to take responsibility for the damage he has done to Canada's international reputation and the shame that so many Canadians feel because of what he allowed to happen. So now I have to remind Liberal MPs and ministers that this is what Trudeau does. This is who he is. He's done it before, he's doing it now, and he'll do it again. It's only a matter of time. And look at the people he's left in his wake. People like Selina Caesar-Chavannes, Mona Fortier, even Finance Minister Bill Morneau, and the former Governor General David Johnston. All these people followed the Prime Minister's marching orders, took the bullets, did their jobs, took the shots, and he either fired them or they've had to go away with a reputation in tatters because of him. And he's doing it now with the Speaker. He's scapegoating, he's gaslighting everybody else, and he's trying to get us all to believe this story that just defies credibility and is totally nonsense. And this would almost be funny because it's all so absurd, but it's not. It's deeply disturbing. In Lakeland, I represent the highest percentage of Ukrainian Canadians of any of the federal ridings across the country. My husband's Ukrainian family has been settled in the area for 120 years, longer even than Alberta has been a province. I grew up nearby in another part of Lakeland in a county called the Cradle of Ukrainian Settlement in Canada. Friends and family members of people all across Lakeland are in Ukraine, fighting on the front lines, caught in the crossfire and the complexities of the region, fighting for their lives, for their sovereignty, and for their territorial integrity. This issue is deeply personal for me. It's deeply personal, as it is for so many of the people that I represent. And the way that the Prime Minister has treated this internationally embarrassing disaster is just shameful. And let's get real about why Prime Minister Trudeau really brought President Zelensky here in the first place. It's because he's had a brutal couple of months. Canadians are seeing through him. The cost of living crisis that he created is out of control, and he's trying to distract, and he tried to make this a big celebratory red carpet moment for himself. But he messed it all up, and now he's blaming everyone else for the damage he's done. And it's hard to remember now, but I think the whole point of this visit was for President Zelensky to thank Canadians for their long-standing support of Ukraine. But all that actually has happened now because of this Prime Minister is that it's fed right into Putin's propaganda. And frankly, whether it was this Prime Minister's negligence or incompetence that led to this debacle, it's an insult to Canadian veterans, to Canadian Armed Forces members serving now, to Ukrainian Canadians and other Canadians of Eastern European descent, and of course, horrifically, a betrayal of Holocaust survivors and all of their descendants, Jewish Canadians and Jewish people right around the world. And I really think if Prime Minister Trudeau feels no compunction towards the people he serves, and he only cares about himself, then he should get out of the way. Because I know somebody who would do a much better job being Prime Minister and would always put the people first. And as always, thanks for watching.